Marcelo, this is, I want to get this out of the way. This is your first appearance on a talk show.
Yes, can you tell?
It's just, it's amazing that you know all the customs. Tuxedo, corsage for the host, bottle of wine with no glasses or corkscrew. This is I'm so happy. I really love this. I'm gonna take it off only because I'm worried I'm gonna poke your eye out. But
Okay.
I talk with my hands.
Okay.
Congratulations on an exceptional first season on the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
And
man. Thank you, guys.
I hope this is true, but when I watch new cast members, and I think the first time I really took stock of you was behind the update desk, you seemed like you were having a very good time, which is a very hard thing to do on a stressful show like that. But I think one of the reasons the audience likes to see you is you seem to be enjoying yourself.
I absolutely am. I used to sell tickets on the street in New York, so there's nothing to not be happy about. There's no reason for me not to be having the time of my life.
Well, it definitely shows, and it's very exciting to have you back. And also, I was backstage. Your mom is here tonight.
My mom is here today.
I think she is right over there.
There she is.
There
Yes,
she is.
that's my mom. Can I say something to her?
You can say whatever you like to your mom.
Mom, very quickly, I just want to say I am so grateful for you and everything that you sacrificed for me in my life. And everything I do, including this, is always for you. Te amo, mamá, con todo mi corazón. Te quiero con todo.
Aww. That is so sweet. And also, it's funny because I was in the dressing room and you walked out and I said to your mom, "You must be so proud of him," and she went, "Eh."
That sounds like her. Yes, that sounds like
No,
her.
I'm joking, of course. But you did a sketch with Pedro Pascal, who
Yes.
it was a really wonderful season of host last year, but he did stand out.
Yes.
And he played an overprotective mother, and there's Pedro with a mustache, which is very funny to me. And was this based at all on your mom?
Not physically.
Yeah. I think that is clear. It's almost why it was good to have a cut to of your beautiful mother.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. He came to the show and he kind of had this idea of wanting to do something in Spanish, and he wanted to be my mother. It was, he kind of had this vibe coming in, and I was lucky enough to be the only person at the show that could write in Spanish.
Yeah.
And it just gave me the great opportunity. So, Pedro, my second mom, thank you. I love you.
And what are some of the things that, I know it's based on actual things, what were some things your mom would say that you knew as somebody with a sense of humor were funny things?
Well, the great line, one of the pieces of the sketch is that my mother doesn't believe in ADD. And so one of the lines is, my son don't have ADD, he just like to jump. So that kind of sounds like her.
You took advantage of being able to write in Spanish multiple times
Yes.
last year. Ana de Armas was on.
Oh, wow.
And you wrote, this is, it was a Spanish class. And you grew up in Miami, but you went to college in Ohio, and you did take Spanish in college.
Yes, I took I wanted to feel smart in school.
Yeah.
So I took the hardest class that they had, Spanish 1 million. And it was so funny to me because the teachers in these Spanish classes in the Midwest, they have American names, I walked in and my teacher's name was, Seth Meyers. Like something like, just like a name that you knew immediately you were gonna be like, oh, I'm better than this person. And it was just shocking. Like, I remember one of the times, like the first day everybody introduces themselves and the lady's like, Jake, por favor. And he's like, hola, mi nombre es Jake. And yo soy from Cincinnati. And mi comido favorito is pizza. And then I'm like, no, now me, please, me. And I'm like, hola, me llamo Marcelo y soy de Miami. Mi comida favorita es arroz con frijoles con plátano maduro y un poquito de pan empanizado. And then the teacher's just like, did you guys hear that? That is your new teacher.
Now, you actually, a college athlete. Played
Yes.
soccer in college.
Yes, John
That's
Carroll
fantastic.
University.
There you go. I love to see this. And then, because you did a wonderful thing with the update desk about Latin baseball players and how they celebrate differently, they interview differently, they have more style, more flair, and you actually got to participate in the All-Star game this year.
Yes.
There you are, looking like you know what you're doing. But even more impressive, I want to show a clip because I threw out a first pitch once. I was so nervous. And you, walking up to bat in this Celebrity All-Star game, seemed very chill and loose. And I'll show it first and then ask you a question. Let's watch Marcelo walking to the plate.
Oh. Is he a New Yorker? Wait a minute.
Seems like he could be.
Yeah, I definitely did that.
I think my favorite, I really enjoy that update feature, the many observations you have about Latin baseball players. One is just the pulling out of the chain.
Of course.
Which is, can you explain real quick?
I think it's just one. It's to be maybe a little more comfortable out there, but they have a few chains, and some of it is religious. You know what I mean? They always have like a crucifix or something, and yeah, I think they're just cool that way. They pull out their chain. They're like, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. They thank people. It's like such a beautiful experience. I used to have a joke I did on stage where the batter would be like, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, just in case I need a little divine intervention. And they're so ready afterwards.
When you auditioned for SNL, were you pulling from old stand-up? Did you at least know, oh, I'm doing stuff that's worked on stage and have a little bit more confidence because of that?
1,000%. A lot of my audition material was about my mom and about how she escaped communism. And I'd be like, Mom, I had a bad day at school. And she'd be like, oh, yeah? At the place with the free food, that's... So a lot of the stuff was kind of about that stuff. And she's my inspiration, my muse.
Welcome to the show.
Wow. Hello, everyone.
I have a lot of questions about SNL, but I want to start by congratulating you on
what exactly?
the birth of Homer. Look at Homer,
Oh.
everybody.
I had a baby?
What a baby.
You're kidding me.
And you posted this on Instagram, and thank you so much for promoting the show, Homer.
Late night with Seth Meyers.
I also
Oh.
don't think I even have one of those. So
Well, I have 47 of them, and I think he had just spit up, so I had just changed him into
okay, got you. Well, that's the
number
thing.
31.
You got to have backups with how much they spit up.
Oh,
So
man.
this baby was born this month.
This month, he was born January 4th, 2022. Is that what we're
That's
doing?
where we're at. Yeah.
And he's beautiful. He's actually gorgeous. He's a very beautiful boy.
That's great.
And he looks exactly like my wife, which is awesome. Doesn't have a freaky, long character actor beak.
Working backwards, this means that you got hired on SNL. At the time, that meant that you had your wife was pregnant, and then you had to
Yes.
move to New York City. You had a lot happened all at once for you.
Dude. If no one has ever told a woman who's 6 months pregnant that she has to move to New York in the middle of winter, you should do it. You should give it a try. Because that was one of my favorite conversations I've
Yeah.
ever had.
It's the perfect reason to do it. And I have had, I feel like some of your experience I'm familiar with because I was also on SNL, but my first year, I was in like 2 sketches.
Right, yeah.
Your first episode, you opened the show playing
Yeah.
Joe Biden, which is, I cannot even imagine the pressure
That's me.
of taking that on. It was fantastic. And now I had heard you do some impressions before, but I had not,
Yeah.
I had not heard your Biden. Did you have a Biden?
My Biden was, on the list. When I got here, they asked me to send them a list of all the impressions that I do, and I would say that Biden was like, number 38 down the list of like my confidence level in it. But they had seen a video of me doing Biden, and they were like, "Yeah, that may come up down the road." That was like what I heard when I was getting seen for the show.
But on the first Saturday, when did you find out you were going to play Biden? on your first-
Like Thursday night. Like Thursday night. Thursday night, I had one of those cryptic Lorne meetings
Sure.
where he you walk into a room and he's like, "How do you feel about wearing pants?" Like, he just asks you just weird questions, and I'm like, 45 minutes later, you think, I think they're gonna ask me to do Biden, maybe.
Right.
It was that kind of, are you comfortable with accessories?
Right.
Like,
asked-
would he like to wear teeth?
He asked me when I went in, and I realized after the fact it was the meeting he hired me in. One of the
yeah.
things he said was, and obviously we'll need to see how you look in wigs. And I was like, what? Did you know when you had your meeting with him, did you know he had hired you?
Yeah, so they have this, after you do the audition, you go in and maybe you'll have a meeting with them, and I got called into one of those meetings, and very mysterious and cryptic and warm at the same time somehow. And he was like, are you married? I was like, yes, I am. Children? My wife is 5 months pregnant at this point. She's about to be 6 months pregnant. That's a good sign. When's your baby due? And I was like, Christmas Eve. And then he like looks at the big calendar of when the shows are gonna be on his wall, and he goes, we have a show December 18th. I was like, I do? I'm like washing my hands like 30 minutes later, like, do I have to move?
Did you ever get an official call of any sort?
They said after that meeting, they were like, tomorrow, you might be getting a call from a very important producer. I was like, okay, this is it. I think it's gonna happen. And then I went to a movie with some friends. My phone was on like 5% because that's how I live.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, please don't die. Please don't die. If this phone dies and I miss this call, they cast me back out into commercial actor hell. And
That's
I'll
the
never
thing.
get
If
to
Lauren,
do it.
famously, if Lauren gets voicemail, he's like, "Who's next on the list?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren famously, if there's one hurdle, he quits. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I didn't get a call. And then I was so drained from the process, and I had shot a big thing for the whole month beforehand. So I was like, my wife was on vacation with our families in Tennessee. I was here in New York. I was like, I'm not getting on a bumpy Southwest flight right after the most stressful audition of my life and just sitting back down in Nashville trying to eat baked beans while my hands are like going like this. Can I get some more pork shoulder? And I was like, I need to decompress somehow. So I took an Amtrak train from New York to Birmingham.
Now that strikes me as even shakier than eating beans.
24 hours in a coach seat on Amtrak? What are you talking about? You got the guy reaching over you with his like little cord. Can I plug this in? And so I was hanging out on the Amtrak train, and I got a call from a weird number, and I picked it up, and the girl was like, Lorne Michaels Speed, and then he got put in, and I was like crying. I was like in tears because I was like just so exhausted, and they didn't call when they said they were going to call. So I was like, so then I get patched through to Lord, and he's like, yeah, we got the wrong number. I think I've hired somebody else too. Where are you? Oh, I'm on an Amtrak train from New York to Birmingham. And he goes, oh, what a glamorous life you lead. By the way, you need to join the Catch Saturday.
Well, that's wonderful. You made a great choice. I first became aware of you. I think maybe a lot of people became aware of you hearing your Donald Trump impression. You were also playing Donald Trump on the show.
Also Donald Trump.
Yeah, so that's the last two presidents. That's good. That's a hot start.
Yeah, both current presidents.
Yeah, that's
it's really
amazing.
interesting
Yeah.
to play both guys. But I think as a team, they're doing a great job.
I think so too. Team
A
of
little
rivals.
bit of him, a little bit of that guy, mix it up. It's pretty interesting having to differentiate. I haven't had to do them both in the same sketch yet, but
Yeah.
with TV magic, anything's
Could
possible.
happen. Your Trump is very stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And when did you come to that sort of awareness that was the fun part of doing it?
So I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm from a pretty conservative environment. I was raised in. I went to church 18 times a week or something like that. And so the stream of consciousness thing. I think I just, as the more progressive member of my family, I remember the Thanksgiving where I was like, I voted for Obama. Nothing. So I've always been that guy in my family, and so when Trump came on the scene, ooh, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't like this guy. He's weird and he's mean. And it broke my heart for a long time. And then I was a Voices guy, so obviously I have to try out doing a Trump. And so the first times that I tried doing the Trump, it just sort of reflected my sort of liberal black sheep anger. You know, I mean, we're gonna kill everybody. You know, I was saying stuff that no one wanted to hear, or I'd say like things he actually said, and I just remember the audience just always yanking back, especially as I got the voice, as I started sounding like him.
Yeah.
And then I would just say horrific things. People hated it.
Yeah.
And you're performing in noisy bars all the time. You don't want them to be quiet with no laughs. That means you've touched on something that everyone hates. They're putting down their Moscow mules to hate it. And then at some point, I just started I realized oh, the stuff that he's talking about, we got over hundreds of years ago. He's like bringing up like these issues that we don't even think about anymore. So that's when I started abstracting him. I made him like a guy talking about the wizard on the hill. Like I would do like a medieval Trump, like a fantasy movie Trump. Like, You know what? The king is doing nothing about the gigantic dragon. We've got this giant dragon that nobody's doing anything about. And you know, the guy who comes through in the morning, he does the swords and he's banging the hammer. And I said, you know what? If I could just, believe me, this is true. Only I can get the amulet. Only I can get the amulet, and that wizard we're gonna make that wizard's head spin. When I have the enchanted sword, we're gonna plunge that enchanted sword straight into the dragon's soft underbelly. And that's when I started getting the laughs with it.
Yeah,
making it really
it's
this
very nice. You also, yes,
Yeah,
please,
thank you,
well
sure.
deserved.
Thank you.
You also, you may, like you obviously have a very good ear for this. You made this observation by listening about he makes like weird throat noises.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in the public consciousness for 100 years.
Yeah.
We have known him. He's in Home Alone 2. You know what I mean? I think he had a show on this network at some point.
No.
He's been around. We've
Yeah.
been listening to him. So you have all these different impressions of him. Everybody does a different era of Trump, you know what I mean? And when he came back in the 2010s, ready to be president, his voice had deteriorated a lot. Have you ever seen Bob Dylan live now? Like, did I pay for a Tom Waits show or something like that? That's what's happened to him, and his voice is very, very gurgly, Hillary. He goes back here, and there's a lot of accessing sort of the dark dungeons of my throat.
Yeah.
Was necessary to play this Trump because he's not the smooth 80s. She's got beautiful legs. He's not really 80s Trump anymore. Remember 80s Trump?
Yeah.
80s Trump. She's a very nice person. I'm looking forward to speaking with her. He's not that guy anymore. Man, she's beautiful, and I'm gonna take over everything, baby. He went down.
He went down.
He went a few floors down.
One of the first, I was listening to a podcast that you were on,
Yeah.
and you were doing your Trump impression, talking about the sort of late '90s, early 2000 New York alt comedy scene.
Yeah.
And it was so hyper specific. And the first time we met, I asked you like how, based on your age, I thought
Yeah.
you must have been so young when that was going on. How did you know about it?
Oh, I started doing stand-up pretty early. I mean, the first time I did my own stand-up, I was like 14, maybe.
Gotcha.
Like, filling time while they counted the votes at a singing competition.
Okay.
So I started in comedy really early. I always wanted to do this. And
How were you doing on stage as a 14-year-old? Were you doing okay with laughs-wise?
weirdly, the first couple times sometimes are amazing.
Yeah.
It's the next 90 times
yeah.
that are train wrecks. Like I remember I was like performing at the Christian college that my dad works at, and my first time ever doing my own comedy, and I did this thing where I was the Chuck E. Cheese, you know the Chuck E. Cheese robots? Mm-hmm. I did this thing where I was afraid to go to Chuck E. Cheese as a kid because I was afraid of the characters. They scared me. So when the robots would perform, they say it's your birthday, I heard a different song. Then I'd play Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 by Pink Floyd. Then I'd do the... And that's what I was doing as a 14-year-old. And
That's very advanced for a 14-year-old.
pretty advanced.
And this
Pretty
was,
weird.
you were recognized for your comedy very early. You won a superlative in high school. You were the
at
wittiest
that.
person. I will say, when I first glanced at this, I did read whitest, which I think
I could have qualified.
you could have won them both.
I could have qualified. You know, they really had to mess with the aperture on the camera to pick up some of my skin tones.
But this
and,
is good. This means that even as a young man, your classmates, your peers knew you to be comedy.
Yes, it was pretty clear what my ambitions were to everyone else. That was when the yearbook committee came up to me and they said, "You got wittiest." I was like, "It does not get better than that." I am going to be the funniest poetry professor Middle Tennessee has ever seen.
What about your early impressions as a kid? Who were you doing then? What?
Oh my gosh! I mean, the Jar Jar Binks remains an important inspiration to us all.
Yeah.
Especially me. And so I was doing a lot of Jar Jar Binks. My parents always had big groups of friends over all the time. They love entertaining. And so they would drag me out of my room and make me do impressions for everybody. And the big three were Jar Jar Binks, Al Gore, Louis Armstrong.
Gotcha.
And I took the trumpet out for Louis Armstrong.
You did. You had your own
I
trumpet.
would play a very bad bar of When the Saints Go Marching In.
And then did you start doing open mics? Like,
Yeah. So I went to this Christian college where I had to sign a paper saying that I won't sin ever.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, good. And that means you couldn't go to bars at the school that I went to. And when I decided that I needed to go full force into stand-up professionally, I Googled like stand-up open mic near me, and it was always the most just scum of the earth rat den dive bars. And I'm 19. I go to the Christian college down the road, and I'm literally walking in through patio doors and getting a $5 Pepsi, hoping not to get carded, and then telling my jokes that no one wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I did that for like 3 years before, like 2 years before I turned 21 and could legally be in there.
And did you ever, did the paper you signed ever come back to haunt you? Did they ever shake it in your face?
I think someone is hammering on my dad's door right now, now that I've made this admission on national TV. But you, sir, who's in charge of the ethics at the Christian college, what are you doing up so late?
There you go.
Think about it. Think about your choices.
Think about your choices. Welcome, thank you for being here, Chloe.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on another excellent season of SNL.
We did it.
You did it.
We
and
did it.
I feel like your tenure at the show has been over a very difficult time, and it's finally getting back to a little
Very
bit of
normal.
normalcy.
Yeah.
You guys had the party after the finale.
Yeah, we had an after party in the ice skating rink / now it's a roller
It's
rink.
a roller
Cool
skating
roller
rink.
skating rink.
Yeah.
And I'd never experienced that before. It was
And
wild.
it was always historically where the party was.
Mm-hmm.
My years, I felt like every year it rained. That was not the problem this
No,
year.
it was about 120 degrees
Yeah.
outside.
Did you feel like, was it a sweaty night?
I was in like a thin gold fabric that kind of holds smell, which I didn't realize. And it's the end of the year, and you've bonded with all these people, and you're hugging everybody and saying how proud you are. And I had a big hug with Lorne, thanking him for such a great year. And then I walked over, and my best friend was like, I say this as your friend, you have never smelt worse. It like,
No, I will say, like, a really good friend says it before you hug your boss.
boss. There's celebs. We won't name drop. Ronan Farrow. I'm like, we should get a
Big,
drink.
yeah.
Just.
And then you mentioned your friend. These were sort of growing up friends that you
Yeah.
brought to the party.
Yeah.
That is a really cool party to bring.
Yes. Yeah. About the coolest thing you can do.
And did you take them
In
to
your-
the party after the party?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So did you kind of like do it up when you brought your friends?
Yes, I was like, come to this after. Maya Rudolph is singing. They're dancing, and then around 6:30 it starts to maybe it was 6. It like shuts down, and then there's the after party, and I get to be like, guys, want to go hang at Kenan Thompson's after. And they're like, what is your life? This is so cool. The show, it's like this.
Yeah.
And then this night you get to celebrate. So I was like, I got it. And it was at the Hard Rock Hotel, not to give anything away.
Yeah.
He doesn't live there.
Yeah.
That's where the party was, if you want to stalk. So I was like, I got the car. So I got like the black Uber XL. I was gonna
Yeah, show it
pimp
off.
it up.
Yeah.
And I get the address and we show up, and then I accidentally Ubered us to the Hard Rock T-shirt shop at 6:30 in the morning in like the worst part of Times Square.
Yeah.
Like Elmo was like hanging off the. You don't want to
Yeah.
see Elmo take
Yeah.
the head off.
Elmo's like, I only take it off now because nobody comes here.
Yeah, and I'm in my gold dress,
Yeah,
and I
this is
look.
your beautiful-
Yeah, this is me.
This is not someone that should be seeing Elmo at 6.
No, the photo looks as drunk as I was.
Yeah, because we should note you're carrying your shoes.
Carrying my shoes.
The telltale sign of someone who's up at 6:30 in the
Yes,
morning.
and
Yeah.
sometimes we have fun paparazzo.
Yeah.
And this woman said that I looked like an undone woman. And she was like, this is like feminism. Do you mind if I take a pic? Like, yeah.
Undone woman
An
sounds like,
undone
I don't know, like seems like something Cary Grant would say to somebody.
Yeah, it was very, my friend Grace Shaker saw me just like, okay, take my picture, I guess.
You did a wonderful sketch
at
on the
these
show that I want to ask you about called The Understudy, where you did impressions of your cast members.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it makes sense to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, wow.
So I think because you are such a talented impressionist, it does not surprise me that you would have an ear for the people you work with and spend the most time with.
Yes.
Were they all aware that you had a them?
No.
Okay. Did they all react the same?
No. I was like, so my friend, Mike DiCenzo, Jake, and some writers,
Yep,
Ken Silva,
great writers.
They were like, we got this idea, and I was like the most nervous I've ever been at a table read because they don't
Yes.
know I do this, and I don't think Kate was at that table read. So the first time she saw me do the impression was dressed as her with the glasses and the stripes and the wig, just like, do you like it?
We had, I mean, Hader, over the years, we found out that like Hader did have
That track.
one of everyone, but like
Really?
he didn't really show it off until you would hear sort of like through back channels like, oh my God, you got to see Bill's You. And I'm like,
Uh-oh.
why hasn't he shown me?
Right, because it's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah, Kate was like, how long have you been sitting on this, you little... You know, she kept calling me a witch.
I guess
and
that
it was
that
a
being
delight.
called a witch by
By
Kate
Kate
McKinnon is
McKinnon. I
really
mean,
nice.
come
yeah.
on.
That's like a compliment, I think.
you
Yeah.
little witch.
This is very awkward because I think sometimes there's that thing where two talented impressionists like yourself and me, we do the same person, and then it's like,
okay.
who's gonna do, like, if there's a sketch, like, who's gonna do Anna Delvey? Because like we both
Okay.
have such good ones.
Right.
I feel like I should do mine first.
Please.
Okay. Do you know who I am? The banks are closed in Europe. I'll send you a wire transfer. Right?
Okay, that's great.
So let's hear you. Thank you.
I mean, where were you when we did the...
I mean, I feel like this is like Lauren is very short-sighted. I know he's
I
like
agree.
a genius, but like the fact that he's
No one
like
told me, I'm
he gave it to
upset.
you because like you looked more like her.
But we should have put
But
you in the
I
wig.
like I am her. You look like her. But can give us
You
a little
look
give us a little
power.
let's
You
see.
look power. Being at Seth Meyers is very exclusive and very
That's so much. The
VIP.
fact that you made poor a three-syllable word is really
Yeah.
that's because she's like so this is so you're Father of the Bride, and
Yeah.
you are this is sort of the Marty Short, the role that Marty Short made famous in
Yeah,
the original.
the wedding planner.
Wedding Planner.
Yes, yes.
And you've gotten to you did a sketch with Marty Short. He
Yeah.
played Doug Emhoff.
And I played Ella.
Yeah.
So we did meet. That was pre me playing a wedding planner.
Yes. And did you do wedding planning research for this?
You know, it's Netflix, baby. You know, it's like the Wikipedia of the day. I don't know. Is that the dumbest thing I've ever said?
It's not. It's making me feel dumb because I have no idea what you're trying to
I
say.
mean, like you Google, you know?
Okay,
Or
gotcha.
we're like wedding planner, Wikipedia.
So you didn't like go follow a bunch of
yeah,
wedding
now I'm
planners.
just like Netflix has it. I'll
I see.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you just watched a lot of like wedding planner
There's
films.
so many shows on. Yeah,
Yes,
and there's
that's
like
true.
weird reality television shows about wedding planning.
That's true. At this day and age,
Yeah.
nobody has to go in deep cover to learn. what
Totally.
wedding planners are.
And then weirdly, the home edit. Anyone know the home edit? Woohoo! Yes! Container store! Yay! They were so organized, so I was like, that'll kind of inform me. And then they have assistants, and I was like, oh, that could be fun. I'm just bragging now, but I got my best friend to play my assistant in the movie.
Look at
because
that.
of the home edit.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
And you had to like make up for that whole Hard Rock fiasco. Like,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you about is your dad did improv comedy.
Yeah.
And still does? Does he still?
Oh, yeah.
That's
baby.
awesome.
Uh-huh.
This is, by the way, I'm so worried. Aren't you worried that our kids are going to react that way when people are like, your dad's a comedian? It's like, ugh.
Yeah, but like, are you doing prov 3 days a week?
I'm not proving anymore.
You're not
no.
proving.
I proved back in the day. I don't prov
Yeah.
anymore. I don't like watching it. I don't like doing it.
Okay.
But did you ever, when you were young, did you ever get to improvise with your dad?
Yes, the story goes, I was 3 years old. My mom was either that or that,
Yeah.
I don't remember. And I would go to San Francisco with my dad to improv, and I would run on the stage when the scenes were happening. And then they take it very seriously in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So he lifted me off. I was crying, and my dad's like, do you want a cookie? And then I just went, I just want to finish my scene. And here we are.
You were like, the stage is my cookie.
Stage.
The stage is my cookie.
Yeah.
Well, your instinct was right, and it's
Yeah.
very sweet that he gave that space
It's
for
very
you.
cool. He's in an Audible podcast I'm doing, and he just got his SAG card. So
All
watch
right, look
out,
at
world.
that. Watch out, world. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks for having me, dude. I'm so excited.
This is your first talk show. I'm very excited to experience it with you.
First talk show ever. Everybody says you're the best one to do it with.
Oh,
So,
well, thank you very much.
sucking up immediately.
Immediate
Yeah,
suck up. Well, there
that's-
you go. Now I'm gonna not ask any of my gotcha questions.
Yeah. Oh, that's your style. That's your mode.
So you started on the show as a writer. That's when I first met you.
Yes.
Now you're a cast member.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first experience meeting Lorne Michaels? I mean, feel like 6 years, you might not feel like you fully know him yet, but
Oh no, I've talked to him maybe 5 times in my life. No, he's great. The first time I met him, I remember, like, it's in that meeting that where it's like very cryptic if you have the job or not. And he asked me if I had any questions for him, and I'm a huge Paul Simon fan, so I asked him about Paul Simon. He told me a lot about Paul Simon, and he mentioned that him and Paul Simon would go on these road trips to central Louisiana, where my family is from. And so I mentioned that, and he was like, "Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, beautiful part of the country." Cut to a year later, Paul Simon's the musical guest, and Lorne introduces me to Paul Simon and says, "Andrew, this is Paul. Andrew's from central Louisiana, where we went on all those road trips." And Paul was like, "Oh, that's great. It's a really beautiful part of the country." And I was like, I'm actually from Texas. But my family's from that area, and it is a beautiful place. And I also imagine it is a wonderful place to grow up. And Paul was like, "Okay, cool." And then I turned to look at Lorne, and Lorne is looking at me like, "Could you just be chill, dude? Like, introducing you to my friend Paul, and you're like big dogging me, like." So I gotta mend some fences.
yeah.
I think.
So yeah, well, I give it another 6 years, and I'm sure it'll be back to normal.
Yeah, we'll have 5 more conversations.
Exactly. Did you remember your first table read? Did you have nerves for that experience?
I did have nerves, but I pulled a move that would make people think I was like the most confident kid in the world, where I showed up to my very first table read in flip-flops.
Uh-huh.
Which apparently not allowed. Not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I learned. It was like I was kind of late to the table read, so everybody was there. It was really quiet, and then you just hear coming down the hallway. And then I walk out and I'm like, "Hey everybody, it's me, new writer." And I was like sitting at table read doing this really like douchey thing people do with flip-flops, where it's
Yeah.
like slapping against your bare foot disgustingly. And then the next day I got a call from my manager who was like, "Hey, how's your first week going? Heard this crazy story. Apparently you wore flip-flops? That's crazy, right?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I did." And she was like, "Okay. Can't do that. Gotta wear shoes, but can't have your
It's so
feet
funny,
out."
a place that has history with some very hard drugs.
Yes.
The line is no flip-flops.
They're like, "Coke, hell yeah. Flops?
No
Don't
flops."
bring that here."
Your parents, as we've established, from Louisiana, then raised you in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something they saw for you? Did they have an expectation that you would want to go into comedy?
I think, like, I got in trouble in school and stuff for, like, talking a lot.
Yeah.
So that kind of...
Dead giveaway.
Yeah, but they were still surprised. They were definitely surprised when I said I wanted to go into comedy, and then they were pleasantly surprised when I got SNL. That was kind of the thing where they were like, "Oh, okay, so this is real." That kind of, yeah.
Now, I remember my early years on the show. It's very touch and go how often you're going to be in any given episode. Have your
Yes.
parents ever been to one? And have they been to one where you're in a lot? Have they been to one where you're in a little?
They have been to almost exclusively ones where I have not been in very much.
Is that awkward?
It's a little awkward just because, like, they're in your dressing room and you're there, like, the whole time, And you're, like, watching the show and you're just like, "This one's really good." You're like, "You gotta see this one. Bowen is going off in this one, so you're gonna like that." But they're great and they're always so excited.
Do you have people in your hometown who are impressed or maybe the opposite?
So many of the people I grew up with are, like, super supportive and great. My favorite teacher that I ever had is my French teacher in high school, and he was just like this like Dead Poets Society type, like had like a band of kids who like followed him around and just thought he was like God. and he would watch SNL every week. And then on Sundays, he would post like scathing takedowns of SNL, just like 18th century literary critic, like scathing takedowns of the show. And we all loved SNL, especially that era. So every Monday we would be like, hey, did you watch the show? What'd you think? And he would just be like, garbage, tripe. And but so then when I got the show, he did like comment and was like, congratulations, I always knew you would do it, that kind of thing.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Gotcha.
Yeah, he still hates the show, but
That's all right. As is his right.
As
you
is
know?
his, I would not respect him if he switched up just because I'm on the show.
This is, I think, my first year on the show. One of the sketches I was in, I was in a full bear suit, so you couldn't see me
Yeah.
at all, and I was very proud of it. You played a dog, but you were just the dog's hand.
Yeah, the dog.
So this was a dog who had human hands.
Yeah, this is like my second year as a writer, and fun fact, I think this is the role that like got me into the unions. This was like the last punch on my SAG card, and yeah, I was a dog's hand.
And by the way, you and the dog worked very well together.
yeah,
I
we
think
had chemistry.
The more you look at it, you're like, I believe that's.
It's just when you work with like, legends, they
Oh,
do
so
it
you
all
knew
for
this
you.
dog ahead of time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I knew Gizmo. Oh, I was familiar. This is me. I'm in like a giant hoodie with this dog, just like bear hugging him. And I asked the writers, I was like, why did y'all pick me to do this? Streeter Seidel and Mikey Day wrote this one. And they were like, we needed somebody with like disproportionately long arms and like a crazy flat torso. And they were like, who's like the Ichabod Crane of SNL? And that was me.
And now,
so-
have you added that to your headshot under special skills that you have a flat torso and super long arms?
Yeah, it's like horseback riding, flat torso, crazy long arms.
Congratulations on you play Crackle.
Yeah.
Was that the one you were hoping for when they came to you?
Yeah. Pop or Crackle, but I got Crackle.
You did not want anywhere near Snap.
No, I'm not a Snap kind of guy.
Snap's a bad part.
Yeah.
And then Jerry was on SNL this weekend. That must have been nice to see him
Yeah,
again.
it was very cool to see him.
Very cool indeed. You have had a fantastic year on the show. And as always, I feel like people don't fully appreciate how many sketches you write as well. I'm always asking people, who wrote that one, and you and Streeter Seidel tend to write a lot together.
Yep.
Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, we write everything together.
And you've had some real incredible hits this year. There was this wonderful George Washington sketch with Nate Bargatze that you wrote. And
yes.
It's kind of a perfect sketch. And I don't often do this. I don't often do this, but I walked up to your office. I wanted to let you guys know, like, I was so insanely jealous when I saw it.
I mean, coming from you, that's incredible.
That's
thank you.
what I wanted to hear. But the interesting
it.
thing is, it seems so perfectly written that in my imagination, I was like, crushed at the table, crushed at rehearsal, crushed at dress rehearsal, but it didn't. Then I heard it didn't.
It went decent, I guess, during rehearsal. I mean, it was fun to do. I mean, Streeter's obsessed with history, so this was like his ode to America's weird customs and such. But during blocking rehearsal, it was a little awkward because Nate's just saying things that America does. It's just listing facts about America, about our weights and measures, and he's just kind of pacing the group. So it was a little awkward, but once Nate got in front of an audience, he turned it on and became George Washington, or Nate's version of George Washington.
It is the perfect convergence of like really strong writing and then a host who elevates it in performance. But it was a joy to watch.
Oh, thank you.
And then another,
Thank you, Seth. Thank you. Finally, someone.
But I mean, look, another thing that was elevated by performance and writing, and you did both, was this right here. I mean, this is. Now,
why am I'm spreading way too much.
It is funny that you're literally man-spreading Gosling. His knees are touching, and you're like, I need more room.
I tried I tried to do it like Butthead sits, but
Yeah.
he's not that spread, so.
You know, I've been very happy to read a lot about this sketch because it was such a joy to watch. And
Right.
When Heidi looks back at you
Yeah.
at air, she laughed so hard that I remember we came into work on Monday. We're like, was he not in costume for dress? But it does. She had seen it before. She had seen the makeup. Was there any
Yeah.
shift in it?
At dress, the wig was a little far forward, so air, there was just more head, and it felt like my face was
Yeah.
more, because it's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
By the way, Jody Mancuso,
Yeah, one of the all-time
Louis
greats.
Zakarian, amazing, did the hair and prosthetics, so they did like 90%
Yeah, Jody and Louis
of
are
it.
two legends. I was lucky enough
Incredible.
to work with.
But Heidi said, you didn't look human.
Yeah.
You look not of this world. And, you know, we're pretty close, so we make each other laugh very easily. So
I
it
had a
was
moment when
that.
she looked at you. It's almost like the way she looked at you the character. It was the first time you, the character, realized you looked weird because you
Yeah.
you had a moment of going like,
Yeah.
and
The heck?
and I
What
just
is she
wondered if
doing?
you put a little more sauce on it at air because
A
it
little
was a
bit.
joy. I mean, it did seem like it didn't require much. I mean, Heidi has admitted like it. She was
mean-
not surprised, but she could not stop, and it was so much fun.
I did put a little more sauce. I just kind of tried to look her right in the eyes and just go, "Hi, I'm insane." Yeah.
This had the long tail it deserved because then at the premiere
long tail it
of
deserved.
the Fall Guy, you guys showed up.
Right. All right, look. I just want to say, by the way, Ryan Gosling, I love this man.
Yeah.
He just came in and sprinkled his magic dust
I mean,
over everything.
I will say another piece of jealousy. Like he is of the last 10 years since I've been gone for the show. He is really like A-list.
He's incredible. I sincerely love that man.
Yeah.
Ryan, if you're watching, I love you. But look at who's a movie star and who isn't. First of all, general hue of skin tone, right? Beautiful and bronze, New York white. Look at the width of our legs. I have a 12-year-old boy's legs with hair on them. It was funny too, because the photographers would be like, "Ryan, over here, Ryan," and then to me they'd be like, "Butthead, over here, Butthead." I'm like, Ryan and Butthead? It is a lot to take in when you're looking at it face to face too.
Yeah.
Because the prosthetics that
there
Louis
is a
put
moment
in.
where you're like, I feel like we were both supposed to look bad.
I know. He still looks
He
gorgeous.
looks great.
He still looks cool.
Yeah.
And I am a
It's
walking freak.
It's like rock, paper, scissors. It turns out like Gosling beats Beavis, but Butthead beats Mikey.
right. That is.
So you mentioned 11-year-old legs. You got a 12-year-old Abbott. I feel like
He's
11.
11.
11 seems like cusp of SNL. Yes.
Yeah, he's into it. He watches.
And how do you watch? Do you let him sort of watch on his own? Do you watch with him?
Yeah, he stays up sometimes and watches it.
That's exciting.
It's hard to get him to watch anything that's not YouTube Shorts.
Okay,
He watches Fortnite. He watches people playing Fortnite.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you do? He'll watch it for hours at a time.
Yeah.
But getting him to watch a movie is difficult because it's
so
the
funny.
time. Isn't
I
that
keep
weird?
hearing that. Yeah. It's not that they don't have an attention span. They just like don't like stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I want to see a story
Yeah.
right now.
I just feel like 3-act structure is just not for me.
Yeah, but he'll watch 8 hours
Yeah.
of kids being like, "Let's go! Here we go! Let's go! 80 damage, 80 damage, 80 damage. Let's go!" I'm like, dude, this is insane.
Can I say something embarrassing? Like I thought it was crazy, but when you started doing that, I'm like, I could watch that for a while.
Let's go!
I was like, I like this. I like everything about this. You also host the show Is It Cake?
Yeah.
Has your son? Does he like
Thank
that
you,
show?
2 people up there. Now listen. Now, if this audience was filled with children, they would have gone bananas.
Yeah.
Kids love that
Do
show.
they? Do you get recognized by kids more
yeah.
for Cake than SNL?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
The
believe
little
it.
kids, I can see it in their eyes too. They'll be like, "Hey, are you the cake man?" It sounds so creepy. I'm the cake man.